Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WCM Live. I am April Garner, the co-host of tonight's show. Brother Edward McQueen will be in a little bit later on, and so just want to welcome all of you who are currently tuning in, and we thank you for your patience. We had a little technical issue that we had to resolve with the platform, and now I am happy to welcome our guests for this evening. We are going to talk about PTSD and the impact it has on individuals, not only in our local communities, but of course across the state of South Carolina. And if you have seen the latest issue of WC magazine, then you know that that is the cover topic for this month's issue. And so we won't hold you up any longer, and we certainly won't hold our show guest up any longer. I always have the pleasure of welcoming not only the doctor with the mostest and my friend, Dr. Winston McIver Jr. to the show. How are you doing, Doc?
I'm doing good. How about you?
All right. Doing fine tonight. Thank you so much for being with me this evening. I do appreciate it. You might have a little bit of a lag, so I'll, definitely be mindful of that and give you just a minute or two to respond to the questions and also to your topics so that we're going to discuss tonight. So I ask our audience to please be patient. As you can see, Doc is still in his scrubs, and it's after 7 o'clock tonight. So this man is busy. He's working really hard. And, we certainly appreciate any time that he can eke out to be with us tonight to deliver great news that will help you understand more about the importance of making sure that your health and well-being are all in check. So, Doc, tonight, I understand we are talking about PTSD.
Yes, we are. We are. Well, but can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So typically, with PTSD, it is one of the more common and increasing mental health conditions that we do see in medicine, whether it be in primary care, as what I do, or whether or not it's seen in the area of psychiatry. Typically, PTSD is triggered by some terrifying been experienced yourself, or whether you've experienced the traumatic event yourself, or whether you witnessed it. Typically, it involves flashbacks, nightmares, and can also be associated with severe anxiety as well as uncontrollable thoughts. Most people that have a traumatic event will kind of have just a temporary issue with it, and it kind of becomes a memory, but not necessarily a threatening or a debilitating situation. But there are some people that will go on that it will become a life-changing and sometimes even a life-threatening type condition. Sometimes, the fears can raise to the point of creating what we call intrusive memories, where you just have these recurrent or unwanted, distressing memories of the traumatic event, upsetting dreams, nightmares, and sometimes even raising to severe emotional stress or physical reactions. Sometimes chest pain, shortness of breath, what we know as anxiety attacks. That would be more of the intrusive memories. Another thing that we sometimes see is what's called avoidance, where, sometimes people will try to, avoid certain places. If they saw, let's say, a car accident, on a certain intersection, they'll try to avoid that intersection. Mm-hmm. Or they'll have thoughts or dreams about that intersection. Sometimes, if it happens to yourself, you can have negative thoughts and mood swings, sometimes leading to negative thoughts about yourself, poor self-esteem, sometimes leading to hopelessness about the future, difficulty maintaining close relationships because you think that it's something about you yourself that's the problem or that's bad. Changes in physical and emotional reactions, such as being easily startled or frightened, always being on guard, problems sleeping, problems with concentration, irritability, and sometimes even just overwhelming guilt or shame. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things that we see with PTSD. Certainly it's not an all-inclusive thing that I just said. It doesn't capture all of it, but it does capture the most common things that we see with PTSD. Mm-hmm. A commonly asked thing is, when should I go to see a physician about it? Well, if it becomes a debilitating thing to where you're not able to function like you need to function, if you're having problems doing day-to-day tasks, if you're having significant problems with sleep, then that's when you probably should go see a physician to discuss what's the best route. Certainly if there's suicidal ideation, then that definitely is a time to seek treatment as soon as possible. Okay.
So, Doc, you've covered a lot in the first couple of minutes, and I put on the banner what PTSD actually stands for, because a lot of people hear the acronym used very fluidly when people are talking about PTSD, or at least what they think they know about PTSD, but they don't know what the acronym actually stands for. So, PTSD is post-traumatic stress syndrome, and as Dr. McIver has kind of briefed us a few minutes ago on, some of the causes, the common connectors, and, why it's an increasing issue. I think it's important for the audience to understand that, just as he said, PTSD can show up in many forms, and it can come from different experiences. And, there's childhood trauma that comes into play. We know that a lot of military veterans also sometimes suffer from PTSD because of the experiences that they had either during wartime, or it could just be something that was traumatic for them during their time in service. But also, as we, kind of alluded to when Dr. Matt was giving our explanation, abusive situations that may have happened to you when you were younger, or even, as an adult, can resurface in certain situations that have absolutely nothing to do with that particular situation. And typically those things that I guess kind of take people into that kind of a spiral, Dr. Mack, are known as triggers. Am I correct?
You're right. You're correct. You're correct. And let me go back and say this too, because I'm kind of a numbers guy. It's estimated that about 6 out of every 100 people will have PTSD at some point in their lifetime. So that's about a 6% prevalence of PTSD. It's thought that about 12 million adults in the U.S. have PTSD during a given year. But again, those numbers are likely underestimated. And those are people who are really showing up to physicians to talk about it. As we know, a lot of people are not showing up to talk about it. PTSD is most among adults between 45 and 49. That's about 9.2% of people. For some reason, it's estimated that women have a higher PTSD prevalence, about 10%, compared to men, about 4%. Now, I think the reason that is because women are more likely to go talk to a physician about PTSD than a man would. I think that's why there's a big discrepancy in those numbers. I don't really think it's that much different. Right. As a matter of fact, I would even venture to say that it's probably more common in men than women, but men are just talking about it less.
And do you see that there I guess kind of disparities in the numbers when it comes down to what's happening in the African American community or in communities with people of color versus non-people of color communities?
Right. And I would say the same thing. The numbers would venture to say that it's probably seen more in Caucasian folks. However, it's probably more prevalent in African Americans. Again, we just are not going to the physician talking about it. And in numbers, other races.
Say that again.
I said in numbers that other races are probably going to the physicians to talk about. I mean, again, that going to the physician. I mean, we don't go to the physician as often as we should. So if we're not going to the physician, then the likelihood of these kind of topics coming up are going to be very low. And I know by the time somebody comes in to talk to me about PTSD, they've been living with this for a while.
Right.
I've had the privilege of being a VA physician as well. So I've seen it on both sides, the civilian and the non-civilian. I mean, the military and the civilian side of it. And so I've seen it in both ways, both instances.
Right. So I definitely want to dig into that piece a little bit more, because I know that there are a number of people, especially that, with the veteran population, there are a number of those individuals who are living with PTSD every single day. And, I think just within the past few years, we've seemed to have heard or start to hear more about veterans attempting to get more support, either financially or through rehabilitative resources. And they're going to the VA hospitals for, PTSD related situations. And so, and I'll say this, I kind of hear in circles where people are talking about how, whatever that evaluation is linked to, it ties into like their benefits and things that will help them in terms of the level of support. So, one question that Priscilla Fuller asked, and I think it's an important question that really is kind of a very broad, sweeping question. What are some warning signs that individuals should watch out for if family members are experiencing PTSD? If we see that happening in individuals, whether it's a child or a military veteran or, anybody, what's the first thing we should do? Because sometimes, we're cautioned about approaching people who appear to have mental disorders or mental issues. And so what are some things that we should do and should not do if we encounter someone like this, or it appears to be a warning sign that something is happening to them?
Great question. So it depends on the level of their, in other words, you need to go ahead and get them to be seen at like an emergency room, like ASAP. If it's something that's not quite as acute at that time, getting them to see a physician in their office as soon as possible. The 5 most common symptoms associated with PTSD would be vivid flashbacks, like the trauma is happening right now. Second most common are intrusive thoughts or images. The next thing would be nightmares. The next thing would be an intense feeling of just, certain things remind them of the incident. And the next thing would be physical sensations, such as pain, sweating, nausea, vomiting, or trembling. Any of those things that happen, the person should see a physician as soon as possible. The other thing too that you hit was a big thing is that now the military is really starting to look at PTSD as it should be looked at and treated. There should not be a stigma to PTSD. To me, PTSD or any mental health situation actually is just as important as diabetes, hypertension, or high cholesterol. It's a condition that requires evaluation, follow-up, sometimes medical management, and sometimes, intensive therapy. So again, it's the big thing now with a lot of the veterans trying to make this a service-connected situation. Again, there's a form called a DD-214, which is the discharge paperwork for a person in the military. And if that diagnosis or some type of mental health diagnosis is not on a DD-214, sometimes it can be difficult to make it service connected. But what happens is that's I encourage anybody in the military that has anything going on with them, even if it's a hangnail, even if it's a rash, whatever, you go to the military physicians to be seen, because it's not a part of your record. It's going to be hard in a lot of cases to make it service connected when these veterans are trying to get benefits upon leaving the military.
Okay. And so, a lot of times people are a little bit apprehensive about going to, mental health centers or hospitals even to seek treatment because they feel like they can't afford it. What's the best advice you can give people if they feel like, they definitely need some kind of assistance, but, the fear of not being able to afford it keeps them from seeing a doctor?
Well, I would I would try to do whatever you can do to get in to be seen. I mean, if you can get family to help you pay for that visit or what have you. Are there some clinics that would do, a sliding fee? There's some clinics that take self-pays, like we do. And so again, I try to make healthcare affordable, so that way if folks don't have insurance, don't stop them from coming to be seen. And so that's a part of it. I want to kind of get on I don't want to get too scientific about this, but I kind of want to break it down to PTSD. There's a part of the brain that's called the amygdala. And the amygdala has to do with the part of the brain that handles emotions, that handles how we handle stress. And studies have shown that folks that are having PTSD symptoms have increased activity in that amygdala area, which causes them to have stronger emotions, responses to traumatic type episodes. So there is a physiologic basis to this by looking at the brain and doing studies and scans that look at certain parts of the brain when people are having these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important to know. And so, you mentioned, of course, one of the root words in PTSD is stress. How can people cope with stress? What are some coping mechanisms that they can use if they feel an episode coming on? Like if they feel that their anxiety level may be increasing in a moment, or they feel like they're losing control of themselves. What are some things they can do?
Well, some stress relaxation techniques that we talk about have to do with what's called biofeedback. Main thing, but the other things would be. Did you get that? It kind of buffered.
No, you're buffering a lot. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So meditation is something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we call it biofeedback. So meditation is something that you can do to help out. Getting massages, if you can afford it, can help out with that. Doing things like, things that you like to do, walking on the beach, because a lot of times when people are going through stress and stressful times, they tend to get away from the things that make them the most comfortable, things that kind of relax them the most. And, getting a hobby, trying to do things that, would reduce the stress, the stressors. Exercise can reduce the stress.
All right. Well, I think that, this topic has so many legs to it because, again, you are coming from, the perspective and the standpoint of a physician who is treating patients who come in. And I'm sure that, a lot of your diagnoses probably end up with some type of medical treatment that's related to medication, and also the kind of guidance that you just gave as far as, things that they can do to cope. And so when we think about like the clinical side that involves counseling, I wonder if, from the counseling side of things, takes a different approach, and I'm sure whether or not they do, takes a different approach to how people should deal with PTSD, because sometimes, it's all about people having feelings and emotions bottled up inside, and they need a method of expression. But does PTSD go beyond just needing a method of expression? You mentioned the amygdala and things that are, happening, I guess, synaptically in the brain, but is there a way that people can actually get counseling help that might not always require medical or medicine for treatment?
Right, there is. But the first thing is the patient has to be bought in to counseling. They have to be bought in. Counseling is legitimate, and counseling is a potentially effective way to deal with this. And sometimes that's the biggest hurdle, because I'll get patients that'll come in sometimes that'll see me that I don't necessarily think need medication, but sometimes I think they would do well with counseling, but sometimes they'll be resistant to go to counseling. So again, I think it depends on the level and the severity of the PTSD. I think sometimes it can be managed with counseling alone. Sometimes I think it can be managed with medication alone. And in a lot of cases, I feel like it needs both.
Well, we have a couple of questions that are coming. Oh, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. There was just a delay. Go ahead.
I'm about to say, again, a big factor is the person buying into counseling.
And you're right, and that's a big that's a big issue or big challenge, whether it's PTSD or anything else that people need counseling for, especially folks in our population. For some reason, it's taboo to seek counseling, to go to a therapist or whatever. And so, people really need to understand that it is okay to seek counseling or therapy, especially when you're dealing with something, that can be as detrimental to your mental and your physical health as PTSD. I don't think people really understand how minor the triggers can be when it comes down to this type of thing. It could be a sound, a smell, or anything that would actually set someone off. And so I want to share with you something that I saw on TikTok the other day, and I as I was watching it, in my mind, I thought, this gentleman is suffering from a form of PTSD. And so there was this roving reporter type guy, and he was just stopping strangers randomly and asking them questions. And the question that he asked this African-American gentleman was, what was the worst thing someone has ever said to you? And immediately the African-American man who was being asked this question, he literally hugged himself. He literally grabbed himself and was choked up, because it took him, that question alone took him back to a time in his childhood when his mother and father used to say to him, your years are worth nothing. And as a little child, to a gentleman who looked like he could have easily been at least 60 years old or older, it traumatically affected him. So that was a childhood trauma that he is living with and probably will live with forever. And it was that one question that brought him back to that memory. And so, something like that could be categorized as PTSD. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Any traumatic event. It doesn't have to be a physical thing. It could be years of emotional abuse, years of, you're no good, you're not worth anything, things like that. Yeah, it doesn't always have to be a physical thing. It could be, verbal, but anything that can create, that kind of situation can do that. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Mack, this is some great information, and you shared so much with us this evening. And of course, as I said before, you can read more about how to decide if you need to get treatment for PTSD in the December issue of World Community Magazine. And you can go to wcmagazine.net to view the full issue and the full article, which is the center spread of the magazine this month. But if you have any other questions or need to feel like you really need to see someone after viewing this broadcast, please do not hesitate to get the help that you need. And especially in a time now when mental health is such a far-reaching topic, meaning it's something that everybody is talking about in every sector of society, whether it's personal life or professional life. There are mental health issues and challenges that people are trying to cope with every single day. And I think that when it comes down to things that are even happening in the workplace, people need to understand that sometimes, these traumatic stress situations are developing in the workplace. If you're experiencing racism and things like that, and you are finding it really hard to cope, it can turn into a PTSD type of situation. So to Dr. Mack's point, it's not something that is just happening to veterans. It isn't something that, you know, just happens to men or just women. It can happen to anyone. And so there's a couple of questions I want to get to before I bring on our next guest, who sent us a little inbox message saying she'd like to chime in on what we're talking about. But someone that you may know personally has asked, thank you for watching, Ms. Margie. If there are those in our community who appear to be similarly situated, what is the community's response to help?
Similarly situated. I'm not quite understanding.
Okay, if you can type in or send us a little bit of clarity on your question, Ms. McIver, I'm sure that Doc will be able to answer that. I'm going to go to Priscilla Fuller's second question. What should we be telling parents where children are becoming more traumatized by the increased school shootings? That definitely could result in a PTSD situation.
Right. So I would say, first of all, telling them that school is a safe place. A lot of times, you know, kids are, you know, they feel like, you know, the school is, you know, an unsafe place and they don't want to go, and there's an aversion to going to school and things like that. But that these episodes that happen, to kind of break it down into statistics, although we're seeing more of these school shootings, it's still more likely not to happen than to happen. You know, it's almost like, you know, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but it's almost like, you know, although you see a car accident, that doesn't mean that you're going to get into a car accident. The likelihood is that a possibility is there, but that it's likely not to happen. That's really, though, you know, it's talking to this child and trying to educate them from that aspect, or talk to them from that standpoint. Stuff on TV, they're seeing it on social media, and
your screen is frozen. Keep talking if you can hear me. Okay, it looks like we're experiencing just a little bit of difficulty with the Wi-Fi feed. So in the meantime, I'm going to bring on Reverend Cheryl Moore Adamson. How are you doing, Reverend Adamson?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great tonight. So good to see you.
It's
now,
always good to see you.
Your hair is beautiful.
Oh, listen, and that was what I was running. Should I slap something on my head?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And we were bringing you on for a totally different reason, but yeah. I'm sure that you have something to add to this, since you know you work with children every day. And,
yes,
and you
absolutely. Well, the important thing is that I work with people who were once children.
Yes. Okay.
And what we have to recognize is that many of us suffer from what are known as adverse childhood experiences. And any of us can recall something that is so traumatic or dramatic in our lives that the memory of it can trigger us and put us back in the same place that we were. Whenever that thing happened. I mean, like a smell can bring up an experience, a color can bring up an experience. So there is this thing called adverse childhood experiences, and there is a test for that. It's a 10-question questionnaire where it asks you, were you physically, emotionally, or sexually abused? Were you neglected physically or emotionally? And then there are household challenges that people suffer from, and that is either divorce or an incarcerated parent, substance abuse in the home, or mental illness of a parent. All of those things can cause us to have what are known as adverse childhood experiences. And when you take this test and you answer yes to 1 or 10 of those, they are predictors of what kind of illnesses we're going to have in adulthood. So a lot of institutions such as schools, elementary, middle schools, and high schools, and even colleges are now teaching the professionals there what they call trauma-informed teaching, trauma-informed counseling. You have to know what people have been through. And this I learned in going back and getting continuing education at Duke Divinity School. So often we ask the question, what's wrong with you? When the question really is, what happened to you? And, you know, even in our interpersonal relationships, if we would simply consider not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you.
Right.
We would be so much better in our dealings with each other, and we would be so less judgmental. You know, and the notion that people should just get over it is something that, you know, even I want folk to get over stuff, right? But it takes a lot of work to get over some of these adverse childhood experiences. And people need to be committed not just to having faith or praying, but also getting the mental health counseling that they need to work through these adverse childhood experiences so that they can salvage their lives and come out on the other side, healthy and whole persons. So that's the challenge, for us to recognize that in ourselves and to recognize it in other people, so that we can all try to be more empathetic and sympathetic with each other.
So, Dr. Mack, I'm glad you could rejoin us, and you know exactly what Reverend Adamson is talking about plays right into what you were trying to explain as far as the possibility and the probability of you know, school shootings as asked by Ms. Fuller. And so do you want to continue or complete what you were saying about that possibility, and then we'll kind of, you know, go back to what Reverend Adamson was talking about as far as the ACEs test is concerned?
Yeah, so I missed all of that, but so again, if it becomes a situation to where it's affecting the child going to school, that kind of thing, then certainly counseling needs to be involved in intervention in that way. Again, for some young people, you know, they may have multiple things going on. They may be a kind of person that internalizes a lot of different things. And so it may be that counseling may be needed in that situation to try to help alleviate those fears.
Absolutely. So, you know, Reverend Adamson, as you were talking about the ACEs test, it takes me back to a program day that was a part of something that I was involved in last year. And it was with it was a program day that was rooted in social services. And that was the first time I was introduced to the ACEs test. And we actually had the participants to take the ACEs test as a part of this program. And, you know, there were experienced counselors there and persons who were authorized to administer and diagnose or and analyze the test. So, you know, some of the feedback that came from audience members as they were thinking about the questions that were being asked included, okay, so now I know why my wife acts the way she acts, or now I know why my child acts out the way that they act whenever so-and-so comes into the room, or, you know, you know, so there were things like that that were in very powerful insights that were gained from this. And so, you know, the conclusion of that entire program day was just all about making sure that, you know, in the social services realm, and even like in the medical realm with Dr. Mack, if we are, as experts, if we're working with individuals and we are more cognizant of, you know, the fact that there is this ACEs test that can give you information about why a person may be acting or behaving the way they are, it will help these social services organizations to better assist people who come in, and also have more empathy and compassion when it comes down to their situations. You can't just assume that someone is coming in and they're making stuff up. You can't assume that, they're exaggerating or overreacting or being dramatic about the things that are going on with them if you really have the actual information in front of you based on this particular survey. And so it was very enlightening. And I think that it opened up a lot of eyes in that particular room, especially for those who were working in social services who may have heard about it just like slightly, but never were asked to utilize that tool to really understand the people that they were working with. And so, I know that the work that Dr. Mack does must be incredibly difficult because, as Dr. Mack, as you have people coming in and they're saying, I'm experiencing this, I'm experiencing that. Like you said before, I'm having flashbacks, I'm having nightmares, I'm having this, you have the incredible job of trying to figure out where to even begin with a diagnosis when it comes down to things like this. And so I think that, what people need to understand, those of you who are listening, and if it affects you, then now you have more information to help you cope. But if you know someone who could use, some kind of guidance through this information, I think it's really good for people to understand that, there is a starting point. There is a point of observation where, you actually can empower someone to seek the help that they need. And whether it's, through medicine or therapy or whatever, it's something that we just can't ignore, especially now with all of the things that are going on. And also with the things we're hearing about in the media with these unexplained suicides that could be like, for example, the young man, DJ Twitch, the DJ from Ellen DeGeneres' show, totally apparently, or seemingly unexplained and just to believe, but you just never know what's behind a smile. You never know what's behind someone's, eyes or what they're dealing with, even if they are, if they appear to be happy and, they're just doing a really good job of hiding it. So, both of you have brought in some really good information tonight. And so, Doc, I'm going to give you just a moment to, I guess, give, a little bit of last words type of advice to people if they feel like they are under a post-traumatic stress syndrome experience or having that experience in the moment. What do you suggest they do? And I know you said it before, but when we were buffering and having some technical difficulties, it might have gotten lost in translation. But what do you advise people to do if they feel they may be experiencing something like this?
Was that for me?
Yes, that's for you.
I'm sorry, you're buffering on my end, so I missed your entire question.
Okay. Yeah, it must be. Okay. There's something going on because Reverend Anderson and I are fine, but your frame keeps freezing. So, but my question was, what advice would you give people if they feel they may be experiencing PTSD or something similar to it? The first piece of advice you would give them.
First piece advice that I would give them is to seek medical attention, to go and talk to a physician. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to find out if that physician is well versed in conditions such as PTSD or really mental health in general. I mean, I take an interest in it, but that's where I trained. They put an emphasis on it. They put an emphasis on early detection. They put an emphasis on early intervention. And they put an emphasis on continued follow-up. There's some primary care docs that don't want to do that. They just don't want to. And in those situations, those physicians likely will refer that patient to somewhere else. But the first thing is to find a physician comfortable talking about it, who feels comfortable evaluating, and who has a plan on what to do for patients. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we talked about counseling, but again, a lot of times folks are resistant at first to go and talk to somebody that they don't even know about their most interpersonal secrets. So a lot of times having that relationship with the primary care doctor is the early way to bridge the gap to try to get interventions such as counseling involved. Again, it all depends on the take of that they see as to how it's presented. To me, if I feel like counseling is there. I explain to them that what you do is part of the success, and that sometimes you need another part of the key to open the bottom lock, so to speak, and the counseling would be it. Making sure that there's close follow-up, making sure that there's close follow-up, and that the person does not get lost to follow up, checking on them, making sure that they have a follow-up appointment. You know, if, you know, in my situation, being a family doc, I have a lot of situations to where I see the entire family. So that's an advantage I have, that I can, you know, gain more, and I a lot of times have insight into what's going on in the family in general, to help better assess the situation. So those are some of the things that I would recommend. Stress techniques, encouraging, trying to do get hobbies, trying to do things, you know, to help, you know, reduce the stress that the person has going on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr.
A lot of times, if you can deal with external stressors, things that other things that's going on, it can PTSD inciting event easier to handle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, thank you, Dr. Mack. We certainly do appreciate your time tonight and on this very important topic. And definitely we hope to have you back real soon. I know we were talking about having you on for medical minutes. This has been longer than a minute, but it's definitely something that I don't think we can talk about enough. And so thank you so much. And I hope that you and your family have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all take Christmas.
All right. You take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. So, Reverend Adamson, how's it going?
All is well. All is well. In all manner of things, all shall be well.
Yes, yes.
That's the word.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know that Brother McQueen was going to join us, but I'm not sure where he is tonight, but I'm sure he's watching somewhere. I know Sister Joella, she's always peeping in and giving us encouragement and stuff along the way. But thank you for being here. And I understand that you're here with the Whittemore Racepath Historical Society update. And so welcome. And so what's happening on your front?
Oh, well, we are so excited. I mean, God has been in the front of this Whittemore Elementary School movement from the beginning. And we are happy to be able to report that on back in November, we submitted to the City Council a proposal for saving and restoring the Whittemore Elementary School and redeveloping the 10-acre site of the Whittemore Elementary School on Horry Street. And on November 21st, the City Council opened the proposal. And then on December 5th, there was a workshop after the City Council meeting to discuss our proposal. And at that workshop, we were able to present the three development partners that will be working on this really auspicious thing. And they are Michael Allen of MOA Architect of Greenville, South Carolina, and Marvin Greer of Marvin Greer and Associates of Atlanta, Georgia. And with the Whittemore Racepath Historical Society, we were able to present to the city what our vision is for what can happen for our community and for our legacy and for our history at that site. And today, Mr. Michael Allen and his structural engineer made a site visit inside of the Whittemore Elementary School. And he was so excited about the fact that that building is sound, and other than, of course, there's asbestos in the walls of the building because of the material that the school was constructed with in the early 1950s. That can be remediated. The hole in the ceiling from the hurricane, that can be closed. the windows that the city has left unboarded, those can be taken care of and we can move forward. The building is not deteriorating. It's just like any other old building that you would go into and do the remediation and move forward with the renovation and reconstruction of that building. I think an innovative thing. I'm just really grateful to God that I'm old enough to be able to see that God moves in mysterious ways as wonders to perform. This really had to happen this way because we re-examined our history and we thought back to what is happening in our community. If you take Horry Street from the stop sign by the elementary school and go on to Granger Road, if let's say there are 12 houses on that street, 5 of them are not occupied by people who are non-African American. So people in our community, as you well know, April, are being displaced, and our people still need places to live. So as a part of our sustainability for developing the community center, the African American or Gullah Geechee Museum, and business incubation and other things in the Whittemore Elementary School building, our sustainability will be having a housing development that will have an income that can sustain the running of the Whittemore Elementary School project. So we are proposing to the city that 120 apartments be built at that site. And we are hoping that the last time people in the African American community got together to provide housing for their family, friends, and neighbors was in I think Valerie Skipper said 1968, when the men of our community, primarily from Cherry Hill Missionary Baptist Church, my father, Mr. Rupert Taylor, Reverend H.H. Singleton, and other men in our community, Mr. Al Rue, there were about 7 of them, got together and approached HUD and built what was known as the Cherry Hill Apartments. That is a 50 family housing development that some wonderful people had the opportunity to grow up in safe, affordable housing. We want to be able to provide that opportunity for our friends and neighbors now. So that is where we are moving toward. Excited about Michael's finding today. We'll get the report from the structural engineer, and Mr. Marvin Greer is moving on the financing, and we're just excited.
So we know that there's an RFP that's out there with requests that can be made by the community, by the public. And yet we have Michael, who is working with the Whittemore Racepath Historical Society, who apparently is still doing his analysis of the structure and other things that are associated with this project. So, was his analysis more so to support what you are proposing to the city, or
Absolutely.
Is it okay? So it's not that the city has approved your actual proposal.
Oh, no.
You're putting together supporting information. Mm-hmm.
Next steps are continued negotiations.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
And how long will the proposal remain open for the public?
Well, the city has at its discretion to close the open status of the RFP at any time.
Mm-hmm.
The end date that they put on it was December 31st, 2024. I don't know that they thought that we would be able to respond within 11 months because the proposal, the RFP was issued on January 21st, 2022. But we thought, based on their assessment that the building was deteriorating, that we didn't have a minute to waste to be able to salvage the building. So we have been working diligently, the members of the Whittemore Racepath Historical Society, many of whom you know, we have over 50 members at the present time, and more joining. We wanted to move forward because we don't want anything else detrimental to happen to that building. We don't want the building to be in jeopardy, nor do we want members of our community to be in jeopardy.
Okay. So what is the funding goal? And I'm sure that, what you all are planning to do if you're awarded the property is going to happen in phases. But what is like a phase 1 funding goal that you need to even start the project if you're awarded access to it?
What our cost estimate is at this time is $15.9 million that we're seeking through what are called low-income housing tax credits. That is a funding vehicle that allows investors to participate with us in financing the project that gives them tax benefits that are in real dollars. That's what we're just so amazed because Marvin Greer has been doing this work for over 40 years, and he was able to give us the history of low-income tax credits. That is another vehicle for wealthy institutions such as banks, major insurance corporations, and wealthy families to be able to get tax benefits that makes them even richer. So they look at these favorably because they get a direct benefit for investing in these kinds of ventures. So, but the direct answer to your immediate question is there has to be what are known as pre-development funds. In other words, we have to have, for us to be able to work and employ people to carry out our plan, we have to have monies that cover those expenses. Mm-hmm. And those are called pre-development costs.
Okay.
And so Mr. Greer is working with people that he's worked with in the past to bring to the table the money that would be necessary. So what we'd be looking at initially is around $500,000. $500,000 to get us started.
Okay. And so how much community support have you received as far as money raised from like grassroots campaigns? And because it is good that you have someone who understands that kind of sourcing and funding, mm-hmm. and would be able to help you find these private sources. But as far as the intrinsic investors, the people who came through Whittemore, the people who are in and of the community, has any funding been acquired from these people? Do you have a campaign that's currently going?
Certainly. We've had people who've given us initial well, of course, the membership is $25 per year. And you can go to the whittemorehistorical.org that you have on your on our screen there. And you can go to the donate page, to the join page, pay your $25 and join us. And as I say, we have over 50 members and growing of dues paying people. Then we've had, of those people, we've had several people to donate anywhere from $1,000 on down. And as our expenses come in, people that we reach out to or members of our organization will rise to the occasion and give us money. We'll be coming out in January with a plan for fundraising. And we're excited. Somebody had a dream about what our first fundraiser is going to be like. So those kinds of efforts, our primary effort is a membership drive. Then we'll be asking family and friends to join us in our first fundraiser. I don't have any details of that at this time, but we will be coming back with you to with those announcements and to make that ask. So we're asking even now if people who have fond memories of what Whittemore meant for them and what it can mean for our children going forward, where we will be able to teach our own history and tell our own story. We certainly want to ask you to send a donation to whittemorehistorical.org or to mail a donation. If you go on our website, you can see a physical address that you can mail your donation to.
There's a couple more things that I want to address before we wrap up. I know that earlier you talked about the plans pretty much centering around safe, affordable housing, and there's a lot of conversation now about the definition of that, and just based on who you actually have at the table that's helping and assisting with this, and I guess the arena that they have worked in before.
Right.
When it comes down to the affordable housing piece, will the affordable units that you'll have available or that you're proposing to have available be more Section 8 in nature, or okay?
No,
okay.
No. There's been no discussion of Section 8. We are learning as we go. We are learning as we go, and this is going to be a mixed community. There will be a certain number of senior citizens. There'll be a certain number of people who are below poverty, but there will be market-based housing as well. So we want to create a community that is not necessarily the model that we've seen in the past from 50 years ago, but we want to create a sustainable living arrangement where it was like when we were growing up, when the janitor lived next door to the school principal. We want our children to be exposed to people of all walks of life, all economic levels, and we want them to have the same kind of dignity as a person who would be a school teacher or a firefighter or an EMT, as the children of a single parent, let's say female head of household. So there are some new models around the country that we are exploring and looking at. One of the things that we said is that most of the people, who are initially a part of this, I'm 70 years old, April. This is not a job for me. None of us are looking for a job. Most of the people who are involved in this are retired. What we are hoping to provide is an opportunity for some young attorney, for some young accountant, for some young property manager, for some young museum curator. These are opportunities that we want to provide in our community for our young people to be able to come back home and be able to do. So this is a part of what we're hoping to do, to create economic opportunities in the process of preserving our history.
Okay. What are the some of the implications and the impact on the surrounding community, and what kind of feedback have you received from residents in the area? Also, have you heard from people who are considering what you're proposing? Have you heard their thoughts on how this particular property would actually, be adjacent or even parallel to the existing Huckabee Heights property that's immediately behind it? So I know that's one of the questions that I'm, hearing. It's, what exactly is the community saying, or how are they feeling about this project?
Well, one of the things that we are hoping to do, because we have to operate on parallel tracks, while we're working on the proposal, while we're working on the financing, while we're working with the national preservation community, we're also looking at working with the community and having conversations with the community member. That's one of the big things that Sister Joella is concerned about, that we not overlook what the needs and desires of our community partners are. So those are all, that's why we need more people involved, because we need people to be able to go out and talk with, listen to, have focus groups with community members to be sure that everyone's voice is heard, everyone's concerns are addressed, and that we hear. And that's why we want to invite people. We'll begin to have more community meetings, and our sincere desire is that if people have questions and concerns, that they would bring them to the community meetings. We've had one major community meeting. We had, in our initial presentation of the proposal to the community, we had 49 people present at that presentation to City Council. And as we move forward into January and going forward, we will present more opportunities for people to come and say, this is my concern. How are we going to address this together? We're very open to hearing from everyone, because this is our community. This is our legacy. We're not talking about somebody coming in and, because of the dent of their pocketbook, imposing something on our community. We're talking about an opportunity for people in our community to impact their own lives. And that's why it's so critical that we hear what people have to say. So I really sincerely, as you hear people with concerns, feel free to give them my phone number. Feel free to direct them to Sister Joella, to Priscilla Fuller, to Reverend Kenneth, Reverend Dr. Kenneth Floyd, to both Reverend Jerry and Jannar Falk, to Sister Linda Wright. There are a number of people who are members of about every church in our community that they may see on a regular basis, that they can have conversations with. And even if people want to send a concern anonymously, we are open to hearing from people.
Okay. My last two questions for the evening.
Okay.
One, are there any designs to do anything with the Whittemore Park Middle School building, since that is basically in the front door of Whittemore Elementary School? Any visions and goals for the future for that building?
We have not gone that far. I certainly appreciate, because all of our memories, Whittemore Elementary School was a feeder school to Whittemore High School, and the reputation of Whittemore High School is nationwide. And when people across the country hear about Whittemore, especially people that were our rivals, they say, oh, yes, you got to save that school because it's a part of our memory. We don't have any plans presently, but various people do have some ideas about what they think can happen there. And I'm really excited about that. We had to jump on this because it was a bird in the hand. The Whittemore Park Middle School has not yet been decommissioned, and we don't know how that is going to be handled. But I think that everybody in our community needs to be on the alert, and organizations and individuals that have an interest in that need to be putting forward their interest to the school board and members of the staff of the Horry County school system.
Okay. So let's look ahead to what the possibilities are. The possibility exists that the RFP will be approved in your favor, and then you can move forward with the project. At the moment that that happens, what is the feasibility timeline for when you believe you could take your first resident, you could take your first tenant or whatever it is. It's going to be a part of this particular project. How long would it take to develop this entire project that you have a vision for?
So I cannot give you dates, but I know that with regard to this kind of funding, that we should see something within 18 months or so. So if we're now at January 2023, I would think that we would have concrete plans and maybe even a spade in the ground by the middle of 2024.
Okay.
So because you can't sit on this kind of money. You have to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say that once the spade is in the ground, the project may take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? I think that's more of what I'm asking, or is it hard to say? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to say at this time, and I don't want to give any false information.
Mm-hmm.
But oh Lord, I'll be 71. It would be wonderful if at 75 there's something standing that people are walking in, flushing toilets in, and all that kind of good stuff. But if you and others would give us the opportunity to fine tune these timelines, and then give us an opportunity to come back and report to the community. We want to report to the community. We want to keep everyone aware and on board with things as they go along. So again, we want this to be a community project, and we want to extend our arms and make this our project and not our project.
Gotcha.
We want it to be our project,
right,
for so many reasons.
Mm-hmm. So when's the next community meeting?
You will hear from us. What we want to do in January is we have already a traveling museum display that was developed because we have a partnership. Our primary institutional partner is Coastal Carolina University. We have the support of the president, 2 deans, and several professors who are working with us. And the first course on the history of Whittemore Elementary School was done in the fall. The course is over. We now have 6 panels that display a short history of Whittemore Elementary School, and there are 5 interviews of 5 different persons who attended Whittemore Elementary School that are on StoryCorps. Have you ever heard of StoryCorps?
Mm-mm.
You will love this, April. StoryCorps has been in existence about 25 years. It is a project of National Public Radio. On the display panels that we have, there are QR codes, and you can hover your phone over the QR code and go to the interviews that we have given. That project is still open. We are inviting anyone who wants to tell their story about Whittemore Elementary School to be able to participate in that project. So those interviews are available for infinity, and those interviews are also in the National Registry. And so the story of Whittemore Elementary School is now not only a Conway story, Horry County story, South Carolina story, it is a national and international story.
Mm-hmm.
So the Sunday before Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we want to have our display in one of the churches, and we'd like to have those displays to go around from the Sunday before Martin Luther King Jr. Day to the end of February in a traveling exhibit. And we, if your church or any other church would like to have that shown at their church in their lobby or in their fellowship hall or in their Sunday school classrooms, we would like to bring it one church per weekend to begin.
That's fascinating. And And I know you mentioned, Coastal being a partner in this, and a few years ago, I would say maybe a little bit more than 4 or 5 years ago, they did an interview project at Whittemore Park Middle School. Do those interviews have anything to do with what you're describing now? Whatever happened to those interviews? Do you know?
I wasn't aware of those interviews.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was a project that CCU worked on, and there was an event at Whittemore Park Middle School. My mother was a part of it, and I actually recorded her video as she was talking and being interviewed. And so
do you know a contact person?
I do not, but you know what? I can go back to that video to see if the person, as she was introducing herself to my mother, if she makes a name. But I mean, it was an organized event, and it was well attended, and it was designed to interview Whittemore alums on that particular date. If I'm not mistaken, that may have been the same day that the historic marker was dedicated, or maybe it was before then. I can't remember. But
so we would love that. As a matter of fact, we would love to know about that, because we are trying to collect our history. There is an app, StoryCorps app, in our interviews. You can download the app and be able to go to our interviews. Not only that, you can actually record your own interview on the StoryCorps app. But we want to know about things like what you just described, because we need to keep up with our stuff. This is our intellectual property. In our relationship with Coastal, we own what they produce. That's a part of our contract. So their students are producing it. And they even have found some funding to be able to do it, but the end product belongs to Whittemore.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I will surely share that information with you, and I don't know if it was affiliated with the Conway Library or not, but I do remember CCU being a part of that, and I always wondered whatever happened to that project because it was so extensive. They interviewed a lot of alums that day. So, Reverend Adamson, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and also to hear about the progress of the Whittemore Historical Society. And, it sounds like a lot of progress has been made, and hopefully everything will, be favorable in the turn of the year. And so, continued success to you and all of the persons who are involved in that project. And again, the website is on the screen, whittemorehistorical.org. You can go there, and I'm sure the latest updates and any information on how to become a member, how to donate, and all that good stuff is on that website. And so, again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, April. And I want to say Merry Christmas to everyone and Happy New Year. And look for the Whittemore Racepath Historical Society to bust out in January. Okay.
Right. They're going to bust a move. Okay. Got it. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. God bless you now.
Yes, you too. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
All right. So, Brother Edward, you have heard it, you popped in the background, and the conversation was so good it was hard for me to pivot, but I'm sure that you may have picked up on a little bit of what Dr. Mack was talking about and Reverend Adamson on the PTSD conversation, which was excellent. And now we have a great overview of what's going on with the Whittemore Racepath Historical Society. So you always have the last word on the night. So what are your thoughts about tonight's broadcast?
Well, I regret not being able to pick up on Dr. Mack. I just came in just a bit late, and apologize to all my viewers, but some these things happen. So, but it seldom happens with me. But anyway, the little I've heard from Reverend Adamson, I'm glad for that progress. I think our viewers needed to hear that. Okay, because some of the things are still up in the air in terms of clarity as to even the purpose of the group and the mission of the group. Okay, so I think our viewers need that kind of clarification to spark their interest, and I'm sure after tonight, I think we should have even a greater interest in that. It's such a valuable endeavor to secure a legacy like that. I mean that is historical. That building, in fact, that whole track. Okay, the elementary school, the activity field, then moving on up to the Whittemore Park, which used to be Whittemore High School. So that's again, I'm just glad that she gave the narrative on that, and I think a lot of people can pick up on that.
All right. Well, glad you could join us. And you're looking good. You're looking like winter weather. Winter comes in tomorrow, and you're ready for it with your turtleneck on and everything.
Yeah, I was out.
It's pretty cold. It's pretty cold.
Look, I don't worry about anything. I know that it's in good hands when I see you over there, especially with your head out with that turtleneck. So.
Yes, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Great topics tonight, and definitely topics that we needed to discuss. And so, just want to let everyone know that we appreciate all the support and encouragement that we receive each week. It's not easy to do a weekly broadcast, and we try to do it every single Tuesday, with the exception of 1 or 2 times when our schedules just, they just do not work out, or we're, we need a vacation, that kind of thing. But we're constantly broadcasting because this is information that our community needs to be aware of. And so, just want to thank everyone for sticking with us in 2022. And, the Christmas holiday is coming up for those of you who celebrate, and just some time off for those of you who celebrate in other ways, or who acknowledge, this time of year in other ways. And we really want everyone to be safe, and remember that COVID is still alive and well. Number one,
still alive.
Yeah, it's flu season, and so there's so many things that could really disrupt a wonderful holiday or holiday plans. So we want everyone to be safe and enjoy your families. And Brother Edward, I don't know if we're broadcasting next Tuesday because it is right after Christmas, and I will be traveling.
You certainly we'll alert the our viewers.
Yeah, we'll alert you.
The decision to be made on that. Okay.
Exactly. But just want to say as well, if you are interested in receiving an issue of the magazine or advertising in the magazine, you can go to wcmagazine.net for more information on how you can do both. The full issue of the magazine is always published whenever Brother Edward has worked his magic. And so you can view the December issue right now. As a matter of fact, the cover story is about PTSD, and it is the centerfold. So make sure you check that out. And then also, if you have a topic that you would like for us to discuss and research, please let us know. Send us an email, hit me up on Facebook, hit our World Community Magazine page, and drop a topic into a post or whatever. And we've received a couple of ideas from some of our loyal viewers, and we definitely want to take the time to pull together our guests and information. Try not to broadcast before we've done what we need to do, but that's the kind of thing that we need. We need you to continue to feed us with some information on what you want to hear about and what you want to see every Tuesday. And it doesn't have to be rooted in always medicine or always politics or always whatever. I mean, we could talk about just about anything, so
this is community. This is community.
So it's anything that's interesting to you. And we have a lot of great things that are coming up in January. As a matter of fact, I'll speak briefly about the Conway MLK or Conway Horry County MLK Day program. It is in planning stages and well underway. And so that's something that we'll be talking about in January as far as the plans for MLK Day. So if you're watching or listening and you know of communities that have MLK Day programs that are in the making, please let us know so that we can broadcast that information, because there's always a lot going on all over Horry County and surrounding areas. And we want to make people aware of what's happening so that you can celebrate. Also, this past weekend, the 10th, there was a wonderful Whittemore Alumni Association winter meet and greet event that was well attended. And we'd like to thank all of the participants and the committee members, the association members who helped to pull that event together. Whittemore Alumni Association exists to promote educational support for students who are descendants of Whittemore alumni, faculty and staff. And so the scholarship dollars that we raise are actually awarded to students each year. And traditionally, there's been a goal to award 10 scholarships. And right now, the association is taking a look at what the awards will be for 2023. And so it was a great first event post-COVID, so to say, and look forward to more information about upcoming events in the spring so that we can support our students who are, going to, who aspire to go to four-year universities or college and universities, in order to pursue their aspirations. And so look for more information on that. There's a lot that's going on in 2023. Reverend Adamson just talked about, what's on the horizon for the Whittemore Racepath Historical Society. And of course, she talked about what their mission is all about. So, there are lots of organizations that are doing big things in and around the area, and community support is needed, widespread. And we definitely want to thank you all for allowing us to be able to bring this kind of information to you so that you can support and continue to encourage. Sometimes it's just all about encouraging, even if you can't do anything else, encouraging those who are trying to impact their own community and to make a difference in the lives of others. So, Brother Edward, it has been a pleasure tonight. I've enjoyed it.
Would be remiss if we, if we didn't at least give a shout out to the committee of the Carolina African American
Heritage Foundation. Oh, they have plans in progress too.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. They're having theirs on, I think, the January 16th, I believe, on 17th. Probably for that whole week. Probably.
Okay. All right. Well, we have to get them on air then to talk about it.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. So just want to make sure that our viewers keep that in mind. I don't know how close you live to Myrtle Beach, but it's usually a very informative event every year. I mean, they really well planned event, and kudos to them. Kudos to Miss Marcella Swans, Benny Swans, the late Benny Swans' wife. She's now hitting it, or co-chairing it anyway with someone else.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And again, everyone be safe. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa, all of the above.
Happy everything.
Happy everything. And we will see you in 2023. How about that? Woo, Brother Edward. Wow. We'll see them in 2023. Can you believe that?
Somebody's getting older. I don't know who it is, but
I don't know who it is either. I'm getting better. So
I like that.
There you go. But take care, everyone.
We'll see everybody next week.
Have a good night.
All right.
Yes. All right.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.